Hi everyone, we are focusing on irregular verbs, and I put it in orange because I never put it in orange at the very top to introduce, because this is irregular. So we're not focusing on our regular verbs. Now, it's really important that we memorize irregular verbs. It's of the most importance, right? That we memorize irregular verbs. Easier if it's memorized over and over. We have to memorize them to your favorite study list. That means you get them down and you put together the words that you want to learn and remember. So you put your study list together. I do have a study list that I put together for the boys. Now, our irregular verbs does not follow the conjugation rules. So typically, our past tense, now remember, INGs do not have irregular verbs. Only our past tense. Now, regular past tense are with the EDs, and oftentimes they say D or ED, but I don't teach it that way. The suffix ED means in the past. And so I teach drop the E and add your vowel suffix ED on there. But if it works best for you to remember just the D added on, it's fine. All right, now it follows the simple past. See the EDs and your irregular verbs. Paul's making me laugh. So your EDs and your irregular verbs, you got to understand how they work. They follow the simple past and the past participle. Now the past participle you have to use, if you're using them in the perfect tense, you have to use them with an auxiliary verb, and the simple past is just with your ED. And that's how that works. Now, this may sound so simple, but reading can easily help you memorize your irregular verbs. So I challenge you to read them over and over again. Review and review. Don't forget to review them. It's so important. Now, you're not going to be able to memorize all of them, but it's so good to get a feel for them and understanding for them. Okay, review and review until you have them pretty much down. I'm not saying everything memorized, pretty much down. Repetition is key to remembering. So how do you get better at the piano? Repetition, playing it over and over again. That's the same thing here. Now, don't forget to put your favorite verb list together and tackle it. Don't forget to have fun with it. I can see at least one of my children making it a drudgery, but don't make it a drudgery. Like, make it a game. Who could that be? Make it a game, not a drudgery. Remember to create and connect your ideas in your head. We're all so different, and we all learn differently. So connect your ideas in your head to remember. So the very hardest ones that we have to remember are the 3 conjugations. It's when we have 3 different ones. Those are the tricky ones. So maybe you could put it with a favorite song, etc. Burn the irregulars into your mind. Get them in there. Study them. Guide those verbs and irregular verbs to include a rhythm, to a snap, to a tap, to a clap, whatever you want to do. Get them going. So how we learned our prepositions? Aboard, about them. I had a rhythm planned for the kids, and I either snapped it out as we memorized them or I clapped it. When we did our auxiliary verbs, I clapped those out, and I probably snapped out the other ones. But anyways, let's go through the list that I put together. Now, there are so many irregular verbs. Okay, Paul? There's lots. But I put together ones that I think is a little bit trickier and harder to remember. Let's see, the list of irregular conjugated past tense verbs. So we're going to have the simple tense, the simple past tense, and the past participle, which sits you in the perfect tense. Here's how it goes with the irregular. So you have your regular verbs in the simple tense. Oh, but typically you would put an ed on here. But does that sound goofy? Buried? I buried. I becomed. I bended. Sounds completely goofy. So we're changing the word. Remember, conjugated means you're changing it to make it sound the way it needs to sound. So instead of saying buried, you say I bore for your simple past. So now the simple past will not take auxiliary verbs when you want to keep them in the simple past. But simple past, they're also still called your participles. Okay? Now, the past participle sitting it in the perfect will take auxiliary verbs. So bear, bore, born. See, there's 3 different words here. You need to memorize these. Become, became, become. See how tricky that is? If you're using an auxiliary verb on this one, then you need to use become. But if you're not using an auxiliary verb on here for the simple past, then you use became. See how fun that is? Bend, bent, bent. So these ones, they're easy. They're so much easier because they're the same word. This I think is tricky when you have it in the simple tense and the past participle is the same exact word, but the simple past is not. Bleed, bled, bled. Broadcast, broadcast, broadcast. So you could tackle it and say, bear, bore, born, become, became, become, bend, bent, bent, bleed, bled, bled. Go over it and over it until you do your own list, or you can use my list, whatever you would like. Do a list and get these down. So with these right here, your past participles sitting in the perfect tense, see how this sounds. Had born. I'm just going to use your auxiliary verb had. It sits you in the past. Had born, had become, had bent, had bled, had broadcast, had caught, had come, had drawn, had eaten, had flown, had grown, had hurt, had let, had risen, had sown, had slung, had taught, had thought, had written. So you would use an auxiliary verb. Now you don't just use the word had. I just use the same one word. And those are some of your past tense words that you would need to use when you're using it in the perfect tense. Snapping right here is my favorite thing. I like to snap. It gets it in your mind. You have a rhythm picked up. Okay? Everyone is different. So you guys pick up what you need to do to help you remember. Review, review, review. Now, our most common mistakes with our verbs are our irregular verbs, because when we're not understanding them. So make sure that you're studying them, that you don't make these common mistakes that are out there. Irregular verbs they're fun facts. Is the past participle of catch. Well, you can just say, well, it's caught. So listen and learn. Don't forget to follow these. Don't forget to study these. Listen and learn your irregular verbs. It'll help you so much. And we'll see you in the next lesson. Bye, everybody.